Hi everyone! Today we're making super yummy keto scones. So these gorgeous scones we're about to make today, the texture is kind of in between scones and donuts. And if you're not familiar with British scones, the closest thing I can think of is probably American biscuits. So you can make them savory, you can make them sweet, but today we're going for the sweet version. So we're using CHIA as a binding agent, so naturally there's no gluten whatsoever. So we're going to combine CHIA and almond flour to create this fluffy, satisfying texture. And if that sounds good to you, let me show you how to make it. So if you've been watching my channel, you should have all ingredients you need already in your cupboard. So the two key ingredients you will need for this recipe, one is ground almonds or almond meal. So this is the coarse almond flour. And we also need chia seed. We're going to use the chia seed as the binding agent. And we also need some baking powder. Not baking soda, baking powder, okay? And some stevia for the sweetness. And we'll need some coconut oil. And on top of that, we're going to use 2 egg rings. And if you don't have egg rings, I'm gonna show you an alternative later. Okay, so keep watching. And we also need a very small amount of salt. You should have salt in your kitchen already. So this is all you need. To make the scones, this is really one of those super duper easy peasy recipes that is just outrageous. We're literally just going to add all ingredients in the bowl and mix. So the first thing we're going to add in is almond flour. So this is ground almond, 150 grams of ground almonds. And we just pop it in there. And inside, we're going to add in our chia seed. So this is 20 grams of chia seed. Pop it in. And we're going to add in about 10 grams of baking powder. So that's about roughly under 2 teaspoons. So it's 10 grams of baking powder. And then we're going to add our sweetener. So I'm using powdered stevia. You can use any kind of sweetener of your choice. So with this particular kind of stevia, I'm going to add in just about 2 tablespoons. So that's 2 tablespoons. So that's the dry ingredients. And this is optional. I'm going to just add in a little bit of vanilla extract, just a tiny bit. And finally, some coconut oil. So it's okay not to melt it. I find it works fine. So I'm going to pop in. So that's about 20 grams of coconut oil, roughly. And also we're going to add in a small pinch of salt. And when I say small, I mean really small pinch of salt, tiny bit. So the reason for adding salts is salt often brings out the sweetness of the ingredients. Very often with baking, we add a tiny bit of salt, but you don't want to overdo it because it's going to take savory. So just tiny pinch to bring out the sweetness. And now we're going to add water. So with water, I am not going to give you the precise amount. If I give you certain measurements, it's going to be misleading. When it comes to liquid in baking, you need to fill your mixture and decide how much more you want to add. So with this amount of ingredients, we're probably talking about teaspoons. So I'm gonna just add in literally a tiny bit at a time. So I'm gonna just add in a little bit. So we're going to use our hands. So wash your hands and we're going to start to mix the ingredients together. So you need to fill it with your fingers. So we're aiming at literally just enough water for the mixture to form into a ball. And once it starts to form into a ball, that's where you stop adding water. So it's kind of important to work it slowly because, as I said before, we're using chia seed as a binding agent. You really need to work it a little bit to bring out that stickiness. It's gradually coming together and you can start to gather it into a ball shape. I'm going to use both hands. When you add enough water, you'll find that the ball should be clean, like this. So you shouldn't have anything that kind of stuck at the bottom. Everything should be here. Okay, now we're going to divide it in half. So you can just use your hands and roughly break into 2, or you can measure them so they're equal in portion. It's up to you. And I'm going to form each portion into a ball shape. roughly. Okay, that's ball one, another one. Okay, so now I have 2 little dough balls. We're going to place them on the baking tray. Okay, so what you need is a baking tray, and we're going to line the baking tray with a piece of tin foil, like that. And we're going to grease the surface of the tray with a bit of coconut oil. And then take the egg rings. We're going to grease them as well, the inside of the egg rings, just so it prevents the egg rings from sticking. So if you don't have egg rings, what you can do alternatively is to take a piece of tin foil, like this. You can cut it half in length, and then just kind of fold them into similar height as a typical egg ring, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna just fold it roughly, like that. And then just tidy up the edges. So you end up with a piece of kind of ribbon-like tin foil. And then you can just create, depends on the diameters you want. And then just fold it up and kind of just tuck. So, and you just tuck it in. It doesn't have to be very tidy because the purpose of the ring is to hold the dough together so the scone doesn't kind of spread out. We place 2 egg rings here, and we're going to place the dough balls in the middle. So we're going to put 1 in each egg ring. Okay, and now take a knife, and we're going to make a cross on top of each dough ball. So we're going to cut quite deep actually. We're not just making a mark, we're actually cutting it through, but not all the way obviously. We kind of want to cut it open like that, and then kind of pour them out slightly. And that's why we need an egg ring to hold it in shape. And we're going to do the same on the other side. Just cut through kind of halfway, so the bottom is still very much joined together. And the reason we're doing it is, through my experiment with this recipe, I find that if we just bake it in the ball shape, the middle is very hard to cook through. So in a way, we're creating a nice pattern on top, and also at the same time allow the scones to be cooked through more easily. So we're going to create 2 different flavors. So one of them, I'm gonna just keep it as it is. All I'm going to do is to sprinkle a bit more chia seed on top. Or you can put, nuts or whatever, it's up to you. But I'm going to just sprinkle some more chia seed. So with the other one, I'm going to just leave it as it is because I'm going to top it with some chocolate later. I know. Okay, so now they're going into the oven. So the baking tray is going to a 190 degrees Celsius preheated oven for about 15 to 20 minutes, depends on your oven. So you want to check in between. And then we're going to take them out, remove the egg rings, and then allow them to bake for further 10 minutes. Okay, so the scones have been in the oven for about 15 minutes. And now we're going to remove the rings. If they still feel quite wobbly, then keep the rings and then put them back in the oven. But I think these are okay. And now we're going to put the baking tray back in the oven for another 10 minutes. So you want to check in between and make sure they're not overly brown. Okay, so this is looking good. So it's been in an oven for further 10 minutes. So everybody's oven is different, so you want to kind of check every few minutes. So they're golden brown and looking really good. You can see the sort of crusty bits that's forming on top. And once they're cool, they're totally okay to eat like this. But to make it more extravagant, I'm going to coat them with chocolate. So the scones have been cooled down for a little bit and I transferred them to the chopping board. And now I'm going to top them with this gorgeous chocolate I made earlier on. And I'll put the recipe on how to make this gorgeous chocolate sauce in the description. It's really, really easy, so don't you worry about it. It's just some cacao powder, cacao butter, and some stevia. So I'm going to coat them with this chocolate sauce. I'm going to just go really liberally, okay? Just let it drip. Okay, so this is not about being pretty. This is about being extravagant. Some more here. I'm going to just give it another coating. Oh my God. And in fact, I'm going to leave the other one as it is. It's totally good to eat like this, but you can coat it with chocolate or nut butter or whatever. And I'm going to top the chocolate ones with some nuts. So this is the chopped Brazil nuts. So the scones is a little bit warm, so it's melting the chocolate, but if you leave it cool further, then the chocolate should hold with no difficulty. So there you go, CHIA and almond scones, one original, and the other one coated with chocolate and Brazil nuts. It's time to eat. Well, so there you go. Here's our beautiful, beautiful scones. And one original and one is coated with chocolate and nuts. Well, I can't wait to eat them. So I'm going to try the original, the plain one. And just want to show you the texture inside. So there you go. It's lovely and fluffy inside. Can you see that? It's so fluffy. It's crumbly as well. So here we go. So lovely. There's nothing plain about this. You really get a CHIA as well. It's almost poppy seed-like. You get that really nice texture. It's like eating donuts. It's lovely. It's really crusty on the outside and soft and fluffy on the inside. I mean, this is cake. This is a good cake. And now, here comes the chocolate. Oh my God, look at this. This is like donuts, really. It's donut. So you can see the chocolate is seeping through the donut. It's not donut, it's scone. Whichever, call it whatever. This is like marble cake. Definitely recommend it. Really, really good. The texture is amazing. It's so moist. And you've got that texture of chia seed. It's really pleasurable to eat. I highly recommend the chocolate version. You really can't go wrong with that. So I hope you enjoy the recipe, and it's so super easy to make. It's ridiculous. If you've been watching my channel, you should have all ingredients in your cupboards already. I call them scones, but you know, they're just fantastic cakes, and you can create your own versions. You can put nuts in it, or raspberries, or whatever you fancy, and enjoy it. So follow me on Instagram and Twitter. I post the food I eat and recipes of this channel on a regular basis. And on top of that, I'll give you regular updates on my yoga training if you're interested. And you've been so supportive for me. So thank you for hanging out with me today, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.